Imagine yourself waking in a small earthen room. The air is still cool, though the heat is already gathering in the walls. The scent of dust and clay hangs in the morning stillness. You are a laborer in the great city of Babylon, not one of the elite scribes or priests, not a wealthy merchant, but one of the many who make the city breathe, hauling bricks, tending irrigation channels, loading grain sacks, mixing mud with straw. Your home is modest. It is built of sun-dried bricks stacked in slow, uneven rows. The walls are thick, keeping out some of the heat, but doing little to hush the clatter of daily life just beyond the doorway. The floor is hard-packed earth, a mat in the corner, perhaps a small oil lamp. You rise with the sun. The rooster has already made his call. You eat a small bit of flatbread, left over from the day before, and maybe a pinch of dried dates if you're lucky. Water is sipped slowly. Clean water is precious and must not be wasted. Work begins early. By the time the sun is fully risen, it is already too warm. You walk through narrow lanes packed with people, children running with pots balanced on their heads, traders setting up shaded stalls, dogs weaving through the crowd, the occasional clatter of a chariot's wooden wheel carving through the dust. The air smells of bread baking, river mud, smoke, and heat. You reach your work site, a temple wall in need of repair, or a new warehouse under construction. You do not own the land, nor the tools. You are likely in service to someone wealthier, perhaps working off a debt. Debt is common. It is how the gears of Babylon turn. A few bad seasons, a poor harvest, and suddenly your family owes barley or silver they cannot repay. Many find themselves in bondage for years, their labor the only coin they have left. You spend the morning mixing thick clay with your feet, stomping in a wooden trough, your ankles coated in grit. The sun rises steadily above the baked rooftops. You feel its warmth crawl down your neck. The fabric you wear, a simple linen kilt, is soaked with sweat before the day is half gone. There is little shade and no promise of rest until mid-afternoon. You might hear the temple bells ring in the distance, marking prayers you will not attend. That is for the priests. For you, there is only work and the dull ache of repetition. Still, there are small joys. A joke shared with another laborer, the cold splash of water from a nearby well, the rare moment when a foreman looks the other way and you pause to stretch your back. At midday, you return home. The sun is fierce now. Streets shimmer in waves of heat. You eat quickly, lentils, if available, or porridge made from barley. Salted fish if you're lucky, though it's rare and expensive. You rest in the shade. For an hour, maybe two, the city quiets. Even Babylon knows the heat is too much. Later in the day, you might be sent to the ziggurat, hauling materials up the massive stepped structure. A task both backbreaking and symbolic. Every stone placed is a gift to the gods. But no one asks if the gods feel the same about the calluses on your hands. By sunset, the wind picks up slightly, and dust swirls in golden spirals down the roads. You return home again. Perhaps you wash at the riverbank. You sit outside your house with your family. Children chatter, women grind grain. Elders tell stories of a time when things were different, though somehow always harder, or so they say. Night falls slowly. Oil lamps flicker in alcoves. The stars emerge one by one. In Babylon, the sky is a map, each pinprick of light a sign, a symbol, a secret to be interpreted. But for you, the stars are mostly just stars, markers of another long day past and another yet to come. You lie on your mat, the air still warm, the scent of clay still on your skin. Outside, a neighbor hums softly, a lullaby for her child, and the city, enormous and sacred and loud by day, begins to quiet. And so ends a day in Babylon, a day like many before it, shaped by sun, by sweat, by debt, and by hope, a rhythm passed down, unchanged, for generations, a rhythm that continues as we now turn our attention to one man whose name still echoes through the ruins of empires. Imagine yourself no longer walking among laborers, but standing at a respectful distance, watching as the royal chariot rolls by. Dust is stirred by the wheels, yet no one dares complain. Babylon is not just a city, it is an empire, and the man at its helm is not merely a king, Nebuchadnezzar II. The name rolls slowly through the centuries, regal, enigmatic, a man both magnificent and, some say, deeply troubled. He ruled for over 4 decades, 43 years of ambition pressed into brick and stone, conquest and policy, beauty and fear. Under Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon didn't simply grow, it unfurled like a banner in the desert, expanding in all directions, reshaping the very concept of a city. He was not born into obscurity. His father, Nabopolassar, had already broken Babylon free from Assyrian control, laying the foundation. But it was Nebuchadnezzar who built on it, and he built with fervor. Close your eyes and imagine the city under his rule. Massive double walls surrounded the capital, walls so wide chariots could race atop them side by side. The Euphrates flowed directly through the heart of the city, bridged by carefully placed crossings, and flanked by warehouses, temples, and houses that leaned over its waters. And at the center, a ziggurat, towering and proud, the Etemenanki, believed by some to be the Tower of Babel of later legend, 7 tiers high, painted with vivid colors, climbing toward the heavens, as if Babylon itself could challenge the gods. Nebuchadnezzar's name is etched into bricks across the land, literally. He had inscriptions pressed into thousands of clay bricks, baked and laid into the very streets and walls of his city. Each carried a version of the same quiet refrain. I am Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, who provides for Esagila and Ezida, the eldest son of Nabopolassar, a legacy forged in baked earth. And then there were the gardens, the hanging gardens of Babylon. Do they exist in reality? That remains a question for later, but in the minds of poets, travelers, and ancient historians, they were real enough. Terraces stacked one upon another, irrigated by a hidden system of pulleys and channels, lush with greenery in the middle of an arid world. Palms and vines, fragrant blossoms and shade-giving trees. A miracle of architecture, rising like a dream from the desert floor. It is said, though softly and through the filter of centuries, that the gardens were not built for the people, not for beauty, but for love. Nebuchadnezzar's wife, Amytis, was from the Median Highlands, a cooler, greener place far to the north. The flat, dusty plains of Mesopotamia offered her little comfort, and so her husband, the king, gave her a mountain of her own, a green sanctuary in the sky. Whether fact or fable, the tale persists, and perhaps that is enough. But Nebuchadnezzar was not merely a builder. He was also a warrior. His campaigns reached into Jerusalem, where he laid siege and took captives back to Babylon. Among them, young men who would later appear in biblical texts: Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, names that echo far beyond their origins. He enforced his power with strict control. Order to Nebuchadnezzar was sacred, The gods demanded it. And then, near the end of his reign, the stories begin to shift. There are whispers in ancient texts, not in the bricks, but in the scrolls. Whispers of madness. The book of Daniel tells of a time when the great king lost himself, that he wandered the wild like an animal, eating grass, his hair grown long, his mind clouded. Whether metaphor or malady, the image remains potent. It is a strange thing to stand at the height of the known world, ruler of temples, gardens, armies, and rivers, and still, perhaps, be unable to quiet the storm inside. Eventually, Nebuchadnezzar died. His empire passed on, though not smoothly. Babylon would never again shine quite as brightly as it did beneath his rule. And yet, through the dust of time, the name remains, still carved into bricks, still whispered through scripture, still painted across myths, and somewhere, perhaps, in the quiet space between history and imagination, the gardens remain, hanging, blooming, waiting. As the sky above Babylon deepens into twilight, we now step away from palaces and into archives, not halls of gold, but stacks of clay. Let's turn now to the humble, remarkable world of the cuneiform tablet. Now, imagine yourself not beneath the sun this time, but indoors. The air is cooler, shaded from Babylon's heavy heat. The scent here is not that of dust and clay, though clay is everywhere, but of old parchment, of oil lamps, and something almost metallic. You are surrounded by tablets, not the kind with screens or buttons. These are small, rectangular pieces of clay, etched with careful lines, wedged with triangular impressions, flowing like rows of tiny bird tracks. This is the written heartbeat of Mesopotamia. Cuneiform. It is one of the oldest known writing systems, beginning more than 5,000 years ago. Originally, it began as simple accounting, tallies of sheep, grain, labor, a system to make order out of surplus and exchange. But over time, it grew. The triangle-shaped stylus, cut from reed, pressed into wet clay, allowed for more than just numbers. It allowed for names, for places, for verbs and trade agreements, for poetry, for pleas. Thousands of tablets have been found, many cracked, some scorched by time, others still bearing the fingerprints of the last hand to hold them. And through these tablets, we can hear voices, small, steady voices, still speaking across centuries. Imagine one now, small enough to fit in the palm of your hand. A receipt. A scribe named Sin confirms that 2 goats were received from a man named Lugal Erib, dated to the 13th day of the 11th month, in the 6th year of King Shulgi. That's it. Just a transaction. But it places us in a moment. A place. 2 men. 2 goats. A deal agreed upon. Elsewhere, the tablets tell of complaints. There is a famous one, a merchant's letter written with an unmistakable tone of irritation. You said you would deliver fine copper ingots. What you sent instead was substandard. I inspected them and found them lacking. I paid you in good silver, and now demand that you make this right. Even across millennia, the frustration is vivid. The language may be formal, but the sentiment is deeply familiar. Someone, somewhere in ancient Mesopotamia, felt cheated, and they put it in writing. Then there are recipes. Yes, recipes. One tablet records instructions for a kind of stew. It doesn't read like a modern cookbook. There are no measurements, no precise timing, just a list of ingredients, onions, leeks, garlic, lamb, and the vague instruction to simmer. The assumption is that you knew how to cook, or you learned quickly. But still, in that fragment, we find something tender. Someone in Babylon had a taste for lamb broth, flavored with garlic. a dish perhaps passed from one household to another, served beside flatbread and beer. And then, there are the letters that seem to stretch the boundaries of what we think of as ancient civilization. One man writes to another in the Akkadian language, offering blessings, then abruptly shifting to advertise a service. May the gods grant you long life. I am informed that you are in need of scribal training. My school in Sipar is well regarded. Send your son, and he will learn under the best. The cost is fair. It's part well-wishing, part sales pitch, ancient spam mail. Not all writing was so mundane. There are poems, fragments of mythology, prayers, hymns to gods long silent. The Epic of Gilgamesh, for example, lives across several clay tablets, its lines carved and copied by hand. He who saw the deep, the story begins. The tablets record dreams, floods, friendships, kings who defied death, a civilization reaching not just for control, but for meaning. And still, cuneiform was not for everyone. Literacy belonged mostly to scribes. The training was harsh, beginning in childhood, involving long hours of repetition and memorization. Picture a scribe in training hunched over a fresh slab of clay. The stylus is awkward in their hand. Their instructor watches silently. Mistakes are erased not with backspace, but with careful smoothing and starting again. Over and over, to become a scribe was to access power, not just economic or political, but the power of permanence. What was written could outlast kings, and some tablets seem to know this. A colophon, the ancient version of a footer, might include a line like, "The one who erases my name, may the gods judge him." This tablet is the work of Enlil-Bani, son of Dagan Malik. The writer inscribed not just knowledge, but identity, a claim of authorship, a request for immortality. Now, we leave the scribes to their shelves. The oil lamps burn low, and the tablets sit quietly once more, stacked in their baskets, patient and unchanged. As we move forward, our path takes us to the spiritual core of Babylon, where skywatchers charted the stars and prayers guided policy, where prophecy met administration. Let us now climb softly up the temple steps and enter the world of priests and astrologers. Now imagine the hush of early morning, just before the heat begins to rise. The city is still, quiet except for the soft brushing of robes and the faint murmur of incantations spoken in ancient tongues. You are no longer in the marketplace, nor the workers' quarters, nor among the tablet-lined walls of the scribal schools. You are ascending the broad, dusty steps of a towering ziggurat, a temple built of sun-baked mud brick and coated with painted plaster. This is the heart of Babylon's sacred world. At its summit, a shrine. Inside, it is dim, the air thick with the scent of incense, resinous, sweet, cloying. The walls are lined with offerings, small bowls of grain, amulets of stone, carved wooden figures of gods with deep-set eyes. Here, in this space, the priests serve as both caretakers of the divine and stewards of knowledge. They rise before the city stirs. They bathe in cold water from clay basins. They chant, measure, observe. They track not just the rhythms of their own rituals, but the slow wheel of the sky overhead. For in Babylon, the stars were not just points of light. They were messages, omens, written across the heavens. Imagine yourself beside one of the chief astrologers. He stands with a long rod of carved bronze, pointing not randomly, but with practiced precision toward the planets. He notes their positions on a small wax tablet. Jupiter is in Leo. Venus has just risen. Mars flickers red over the eastern horizon, these positions are not idle curiosities. They carry meaning. They might warn of disease or suggest prosperity. They may imply that a rival kingdom is weak, or that the gods are restless. This was not superstition, not to them. This was data, an ancient science, a way to decode divine will and human fate from the quiet arc of the stars. The priests and astrologers worked closely. Often, they were the same person. Scholars wrapped in sacred duty, inside the temple libraries, carefully guarded, rarely seen by ordinary citizens, were hundreds of clay tablets. Tablets that recorded celestial events, eclipses, and omens. One such series, known to modern scholars as the Enuma, Anu, Enlil, contained over 70 tablets, listing thousands of possible signs and their meanings. If the moon is seen with a halo, and Jupiter stands within the halo, the harvest will be abundant in that land. If Venus is invisible for 3 days, a great king will die. These were not just philosophical musings. They were used to guide real decisions. The king would not go to war unless the omens favored him. He would not build a new palace unless the stars suggested fortune. Imagine the pressure of the court astrologer to speak with quiet authority, to maintain calm when Saturn lingered too long in the sky, to write in steady cuneiform that the eclipse, though ominous, could be averted with sacrifice and prayer. And so, rituals were performed. Goats were offered. Incantations were sung. The temples, high and solemn, echoed with sound, never raucous, always measured. There were no clocks, but time was known here, deeply known. The passing of seasons, the slow drift of constellations, the flooding of the rivers, all watched, all woven into a sacred web of meaning. The priests also administered land, collected offerings, recorded temple income. Some even served as judges, their rulings sealed on tablets. They were, in essence, administrators of the divine and the earthly. And though they wielded influence, their lives were not easy. Long hours, a constant need for ritual purity, the weight of interpreting the gods. Yet some found beauty in the discipline, a certain rhythm, a peace in the repetition. Picture the older priest now, in his chamber high above the city. He gazes out across Babylon, smoke rising from ovens, distant cries of traders at the gates, and beyond, the vast plain stretching toward the horizon. The sky slowly darkens. Stars blink into view, one by one. He does not name them aloud, but he knows their names, an ancient familiarity. He presses a line into clay and sets the tablet aside. The night will be long. The heavens will turn, and Babylon, down below, will dream. As we descend now from the ziggurat, past the courtyards and alleyways, through the riverbanks and markets, and out into the quiet plain, we leave behind not just a city, but an entire rhythm of life, the rhythm of sun and shadow, of clay pressed and tablets carved, of omens read and debts repaid. Babylon, great and proud, was no mythic city suspended in time. It was dust underfoot and stone underhand. It was stories passed through generations. It was law and labor, worship and wonder, and though its towers have crumbled and its gates stand no more, the people who walked those streets, they dreamed, they feared, they loved, and some, thanks to their careful hands and carved clay, left their voices behind for us to find. Tonight, as your breath slows and your eyes grow heavier, imagine them still walking, still murmuring, still writing, under stars that haven't changed, in a world that echoes softly just behind the veil of sleep. Good night, and may your dreams be quiet as Babylon's stones.